I think Burns does provide the link between the thug cop and, say, the modern FBI. He's a fascinating, smart, tough, methodical detective.
Thomas Burns retired in 1895, forced out by an ambitious New York City police commissioner named Teddy Roosevelt. Burns left behind a police department with modern organization and true investigative skill. They would soon need it.
A new breed of criminal was filtering into the city, hidden inside the waves of immigrants filling a chaotic, congested neighborhood known as Little Italy.
Life was constantly filled with danger. People in Little Italy saw people murdered. They saw people run over by horses and carriages. They saw kids drown in rooftop water towers. It was a rough time. And added to this was the terror of the Black Hand.
The Black Hand was a symbol of fear from the old country, used by independent gangs of criminals who preyed on their fellow immigrants. Letters demanding money would be stamped by a hand blacked with ink or a skull and dagger. No one was safe.
If you were part of New York's Italian community and had any money, it practically guaranteed you'd be the target of extortion. A letter would tell you where to leave the payment, by a statue in a park, even inside a confessional. And they meant business.
Wow, the Black Hand, La Mano Nera. Not a good thing. This was Italian on Italian crime. Street criminals that were preying upon other Italian immigrants coming into the United States. What they would do is they would send an extortion letter. When you got this letter, chills ran up and down your spine.
Trouble.
Absolutely. This one has skulls, both upside down and right side up, with daggers on top of them. And the letter is written in very, very bad Sicilian. Not even in Italian. But what they're doing is they're threatening to harm these two girls, who are my cousins. But this is what it says. Dirty bastard, damn pig, who will burn the face of your daughter, damn pig. You will find yourself with a guilty conscience, you dog. You must bring the money, otherwise we will make you weep bitter tears, and you will be responsible for the destruction of your family.
That is a very threatening letter, and it sounds very specific. Would these things have happened?
Oh, absolutely.
They followed through on their threats. My grandmother was kidnapped and she was returned alive. She was a rare case. Most of the children were killed who were kidnapped.
Most Italian families who got a letter from the Black Hand didn't go to the police, and there wasn't much effort to solve crime in immigrant neighborhoods. In 1900, almost no one in the NYPD could even speak Italian, but one officer was the exception, a short, tough Italian immigrant with a fondness for wearing derby hats named Joseph Petrosino.
Petrosino, he would walk around in disguise, pretending to be an immigrant just off the boat, and go around town getting information and spying on people.
Joe Petrosino was so skilled at working undercover and making arrests, he got promoted. When a body was found inside a wooden barrel on the Lower East Side, Petrosino was assigned to the case.
This was in 1903, and this lady was going through a vacant lot. She saw a jacket covering a barrel, and there was a mutilated body. The mutilation was such that it cannot be discussed on family television. Okay, they amputated a certain part and placed it in this guy's mouth. That's the sign he was a squealer. Petrosino was the lead detective on the case.
No one could identify the body inside the wooden barrel, but the barrel had sawdust and sugar in it, linking it to a cafe here at Elizabeth and Houston Streets. This old building dates back to a time when the Italian community stretched over 30 blocks. Back in 1903, it was called the Star of Italy, a meeting place for gangsters, thugs, and killers. Even though he knew he'd be recognized, Petrosino walked inside. With his back against a wall, he ordered a drink. Playing cards in the back were Giuseppe Morello and Ignazio Lupo, leaders of a gang that specialized in counterfeiting and kidnapping. Petrosino gathered some sawdust from the cafe floor.
Like all good detectives, he noticed details, and he saw that the quality of the sawdust in the barrel matched the sawdust that was in the Star of Italy. And that attention to detail is what allowed him to solve that case and many others. There were more than 500 people put away over the course of his career, I believe.
The sawdust match led to a chain of evidence that ended with the arrest of the Morello gang. Petrosino personally escorted the suspected killer, a man nicknamed the Ox, in handcuffs through the streets. But within days, high-priced lawyers had sprung them out on bail, leaving Petrosino enraged at the American legal system, but more famous than ever.
The barrel murder is what put Giuseppe Petrosino on the map. It's what gained Teddy Roosevelt's attention, and eventually he was made lieutenant and put in charge of the Italian squad, which specifically was created to deal with Black Hand crime.
Petrosino actually created the bomb squad in New York City. He was the first. He created the bomb squad because the Black Handers, if you refused to pay, would blow up your business with dynamite.
The lieutenant and his detectives stopped a plot to kill the great Italian tenor, Enrico Caruso, and discovered 60 victims of the Black Hand buried at an old horse stable on 3rd Avenue. Whether it was a threat by a low-level thug or a top-level mobster, Petrosino took it personally.
There's the famous story of the head of the Camaro who came to New York, bragging he's going to get Petrosino. And Petrosino walks in to the social club he's in, beats him up, drags him outside of the club, down the street, won't let him get up. He drags him on the ground all the way to the police station, and then he gets him kicked out of the United States.
Petrosino's courage won him admirers and deadly enemies. One of them was the head of the Sicilian mafia, Don Vito Cascioferro, who had to leave America when Petrosino pursued him for the barrel murder.
For years, it was rumored that Don Vito kept a picture of Petrosino in his wallet, vowing to kill the police lieutenant with his own hands. The mobster would get his chance sooner than he expected.
A lot of the Italians who came to the United States had lied about having criminal records in Italy, which means they could be deported. So they decided to send Petrosino over there. While he was on the sea, the police commissioner said, Petrosino is on the way to Italy and Sicily. It appeared in the European edition of the Herald Tribune and in Italian newspapers.
Everybody knew he was coming. Lots of people wish he had turned around once he found out that his cover had been blown and come back, but he decided to go forward.
Less than 2 weeks into his trip, Petrosino was tipped off that a mafia informer would meet him in a darkened square in Palermo, Sicily. Instead, the lieutenant faced 3 bullets fired at point-blank range. The old mafia don Cascioferro claimed he killed Petrosino personally, although it's more likely that his assassins did the job. Back in New York, Petrosino's death stunned the city.
In April 1909, the funeral mass for Joseph Petrosino filled the pews here at Old St. Patrick's Cathedral. More than 200,000 New Yorkers lined the procession to the cemetery. The mafia had ended the lieutenant's life, but they could not stop what he left behind.
I think Giuseppe Petrosino was the first to say, you know what, we can change culture. Culture's the hardest thing in the world to change, but this guy was brave enough to do that and to cross all the lines. And I think he proved to a lot of people, even though he was killed, that you could do that.
He's a hero. He's a hero for everybody who wants to be an American and wants to be living in the American way.
Joseph Petrosino remains the only NYPD officer killed overseas in the line of duty. It was the beginning of a long battle between the city's police department and organized crime. Detectives a century later are still protecting us from criminals who grew out of the era of the Black Hand.
Paul Castellano was the head of the Gambino crime family and probably the most powerful mobster in the United States.
Joe Brandifine had been in the NYPD 12 years.